Today, I'm going to give you a superpower, not a theory, not a motivation, a real usable superpower that separates top 1% professionals from everyone else. And that superpower is knowing exactly what to say when you make a mistake. Now, I know what you are thinking. That's it? That's the superpower? Yes. And by the end of this video, you will understand why this one skill changes everything. Your reputation, your confidence, your career trajectory, all of it. Let me ask you something first. Think about the last time you made a mistake at work. Not a catastrophic one, just a normal one. Everyday mistake. Maybe sent the wrong file. Maybe you forgot a task. Maybe you said something in the meeting that turned out to be incorrect. Now think about what happened inside you in that moment. Your face got warm, your mind started racing, and before you even opened your mouth, you were already afraid. Not afraid of the mistake itself, afraid of what people would think, afraid of looking incompetent, afraid of being judged. And in that fear, you probably did what almost everyone does. You started explaining too fast. You started defending yourself. You started saying things you hadn't even thought through yet. And somehow, a small mistake started feeling much bigger than it actually was. If that has ever happened to you, I want you to know something very important. It is not your fault. Let me say that again because I mean it. It is not your fault. You were never taught how to handle a mistake. You were taught how to avoid one. And there is an enormous difference between the two. Let's go back where this began. Our education system. Think about our school years. Think about what happened when you made a mistake in class. You got a red mark. You lost marks. Maybe the teacher said something in front of everyone that made you feel small. Maybe other students laughed. Maybe you went home and your parents looked at your result and said, "What happened here?" Not with curiosity, with disappointment. And what did that teach you? It taught you that mistakes are dangerous. It taught you that mistakes mean punishment. It taught you that the safest thing you can do in life is avoiding mistakes at all cost. Now, think about what that does to a child's brain. A child who is punished for making mistakes doesn't learn how to handle difficulty. That child learns how to hide from it. That child learns that trying something new is risky because if it goes wrong, there will be consequences. That child learns to stay quiet, stay safe, stay invisible. And that child grows up, that child becomes you. That child becomes me. That child becomes almost every professional sitting in an office today, terrified of the moment something goes wrong. This is not a small thing. This is a psychological pattern that was installed in us before we even understood what was happening. Fear of mistakes is not something you choose. It was injected in your psychology, into your mindset, into your nervous system by a system that valued obedience over growth and survival over learning. And the damage doesn't stop at school. Think about what this fear does to you at work every single day. You have an idea in a meeting, but you don't say it because what if it's wrong? You see a better way to do something, but you don't propose it because what if it fails? You follow same process your predecessor followed, not because it's the best way, but because that's the safest way. You don't take initiative, you don't challenge the status quo, you don't volunteer for difficult projects because all those things increase the chance of making a mistake. And your entire career has been shaped silently, invisibly by the fear of something that hasn't even happened yet. Now, let me show you the other side. Think about the people at your workplace who rise fast, the ones who get promoted quickly, the ones who get raises ahead of schedule, the ones that management always seems to be respect even when things go wrong. Have you ever noticed something interesting about those people? They make mistakes too, sometimes big ones, but somehow their mistakes don't destroy them. In fact, this is the part that confuses everyone. Their mistakes sometimes make them look even better. How's that possible? How can two people make the exact same mistake? One loses credibility while the other gains respect. The answer is not talent, it's not luck, and it's not connections. The answer is the top 1% know something the other 99% were never taught. They know how to respond to a mistake. They know what to say, when to say it, and just as importantly, what not to say. They know how to turn a moment of vulnerability into a moment of leadership. And that one skill, that one difference is what separates a career that stalls from a career that accelerates. Let me paint this picture more clearly because I need you to really see it. Imagine two employees at the same company, same role, same experience, same manager. Both of them miss a deadline on the same day. The first one panics. He goes to the manager and says, "I'm really sorry. I had much going on. I was working on three other things at the same time. I thought I could finish it, but then something came up. And I know I should have told you earlier, but I didn't want to bother you, and I promise it won't happen again." He's sincere, he's honest, and he genuinely feels bad. But what does the manager hear? Excuses, lack of control, uncertainty. The manager walks away thinking, "I'm not sure I can rely on this person." Now, the second employee walks in. Same mistake, same missed deadline, but he says something different. He says, "This was my responsibility and I missed the deadline. I understand this delayed your review. I have adjusted the timeline and I will deliver by tomorrow morning. Going forward, I'm adding an earlier checkpoint so this doesn't happen again." He says it once. He doesn't repeat it. He doesn't over explain. He doesn't beg. And what does the manager hear? Ownership, awareness, competence, control. The manager walks away thinking he made a mistake, but he handled it like professional. That employee doesn't lose trust. He builds it in the exact moment where most people lose ground. He gains it. Same mistake, completely different outcome. The only difference was the response. And that is what I want to give you today. Not advice, not motivation, a skill, a trained, practiced, repeatable skill that you can use every single time something goes wrong and come out of it stronger, not weaker. But before we get into the training, I want you to understand something deeper, something most people never stop to think about. Let me show you the hidden power of mistakes because this will change how you see your entire career. Think about your daily work. You come in, you do your tasks, and do them well. You go home, day after day, week after week, and you do a good job, a genuinely good job. But here's the uncomfortable truth: nobody notices. Your boss might appreciate it once, maybe twice. Maybe during your annual review, somebody says, "Good work this year." But for the most part, doing your job well makes you invisible. Not because your work doesn't matter, but because consistency doesn't create attention. It creates expectation. People expect you to do your job well. When you meet that expectation, nothing happens. You blend in. You become part of the background. And this is where 99% of professionals spend their entire career doing good work and nobody sees. But now, think about what happens when you make a mistake. Suddenly, everything changes. People notice. Your manager looks up. Your team pays attention. Maybe a client reaches you. You are no longer invisible. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, the spotlight is on you. And I know that sounds terrifying, but I want you to look it at differently. Instead of seeing that spotlight as a threat, see it as a stage. You have been given a stage. An audience is watching, and what you do in the next 60 seconds will determine what they remember about you. Not for the day, but for potentially for years. If you panic, if you scramble, if you make excuses, the audience remembers someone who crumbled under pressure. And if you respond with calm, with ownership, with clarity, the audience remembers something entirely different. They remember a leader. They remember someone who can be trusted when things go wrong. They remember someone who is ready for more responsibility. This is why mistakes are not obstacles, they are auditions. Every mistake is an unscheduled audition for the next level of your career. And most people fail that audition, not because of the mistake, but because they were never taught how to perform in that moment. Think about the professionals you admire the most, the CEOs, the leaders, the people at the top. Do you think they got there by never making mistakes? Of course not. They got there because every time they made a mistake, they handled it in a way that made people trust them more, not less. They understood something that most of us were never taught. It's not the mistake that defines you, it's the next 60 seconds. Now, let me be honest with you about something personal. I wasn't always good at this. I grew up in the same system you did. I was taught the same lessons. Mistakes are bad. Don't fail. Be careful. Be safe. And for a long time, I carried that fear with me. Every time something went wrong, I felt that same panic, the racing heart, the tight chest, the desperate urge to explain everything before anyone could judge me. And I watched it damage my conversations, my relationships, and my confidence over and over again. It took me a long time to realize that the problem was never the mistakes. The problem was that nobody had ever taught me that what to do after making a mistake. That realization is what led me to study this deeply. I looked at how the best professionals communicate after failure. I studied the psychology behind trust, accountability, and perception. I broke it down into patterns, into structures, into sentences that actually work. And then I wrote a book about it with the help of AI so that everything I learned could be organized, practiced, and trained. And today, I'm going to give you that book for free. Comment, let's grow together, and I will share the PDF with you. Because I believe this skill should not be behind a paywall. It should be in the hands of every professional who was never given it by their education system. Now, if you're still watching, and I hope you are, let me tell you what's coming in this video. I'm not going to give you generic advice like be honest, take responsibility. You already know that. Everyone knows that. The problem was never knowing what to do. The problem is that under pressure, your brain cannot execute what it knows. Fear takes over, instinct takes over, and you say things you regret before you even realize what's happening. So, what I'm going to do is different. I'm going to give you exact sentences. These are tested, structured, and ready to use for most common mistake situations you will face at work. I'm going to train you in a system that removes the need to think under pressure because thinking has already been done. All you have to do is to follow the structure. By the end of this video, you will know what to say in the first 10 or 20 seconds after a mistake before panic takes over. You will know how to buy time without looking guilty. You will know which phrases, the one that sound polite and reasonable, actually make things worse. You will see real scenarios and hear exactly how top 1% respond to each one. And you will learn how to train this skill until it becomes automatic, until calm, controlled clarity is what comes out of you, even when your heart is racing. This is not a motivational talk. This is training. And if you follow it properly, you will walk away from this video with a skill that most professionals never develop in their entire career. One more thing before we begin. If you have a similar experience, if your school, college, or your education system taught you to be afraid of mistakes instead of teaching you how to handle them, tag that institution in the comments. Not out of anger, out of awareness, because the first step to fixing a broken system is acknowledging that it's broken. And if this video helps even one person stop living in fear of the next mistake, if it helps even one person walk into their office tomorrow feeling a little more prepared, a little more confident, a little more in control, then every minute I spent making it was worth it. Let's begin. Let me take you to the moment you already know well. Let me start by placing you in a very familiar moment. You are in the middle of a normal workday. Everything feels routine. Then, suddenly, you realize something went wrong. Maybe you sent a wrong file. Maybe you missed something important. Maybe someone just pointed out a mistake you didn't even notice yet. And in that instant, your body reacts before your mind does. Your stomach drops, your chest tightens, your thoughts start racing. That moment right there is not just uncomfortable, it's dangerous. Because here's something most people never realize until it's too late. Most mistakes don't ruin careers. The first 60 seconds after the mistake do. Not because the mistake was catastrophic, but because panic takes control before thinking does. When something goes wrong, our brain hates what it feels the most, and that is uncertainty. So it switches into threat mode. And in the threat mode, almost everyone does three things automatically, instinctively, without thinking. First, they explain everything. Second, they defend themselves. Third, they try to fix how they look and they try to do it immediately. And that's where the damage starts. Words come out too fast. Details get added that nobody asked for. Justification appears before accountability. Ironically, all of these is meant to help, but it does the opposite. To the other person, your boss, your client, your teammate, it often sounds like I'm avoiding responsibility. I care more about myself than the impact. I'm nervous because I'm hiding something. Even when none of these is true. And this is important to understand. Panic doesn't make you dishonest, it makes you sound dishonest. Once that impression forms, it's very, very hard to undo. Now, here's the counterintuitive truth that changes everything. In the first minute, saying less builds more trust. People expect chaos after a mistake. They expect scrambling. They expect excuses. They expect emotional noise. So when they hear something different, calm, controlled clarity, it immediately lowers tension. Brief intentional silence does three powerful things. First, it signals confidence instead of fear. Second, it shows respect for the situation. And third, it gives you control over the narrative. This doesn't mean freezing, it means not racing ahead of the moment. A short pause followed by one clear sentence is far more effective than rushed explanation that takes 5 minutes and creates 10 new questions. Think of the first minute like an emergency brake, not a repair shop. You are not trying to fix the mistake yet. You are stopping it from spreading. And that distinction matters more than most people realize, because once a mistake spreads into trust, credibility, and relationships, it becomes much harder to contain. In this lesson, I want you to internalize just one idea. The first minute is not about solving the problem. It's about stabilizing the situation. And that's exactly what I'm going to teach you in this lesson. In this video, I will walk you through one sentence rescue line. Short, calm statements you can use in the first 20 or 30 seconds to stop panic speaking for you. They don't explain, they don't justify, they don't escalate. They hold the moment steady. And once you can do that, everything else becomes easier. So you have learned something that changes the whole game. The first minute after a mistake isn't where you fix the problem, it's where you stop it from spreading. So now let's do the part you actually came for. Because when your stomach drops and your mind starts racing, you don't need a perfect explanation. You need one calm sentence that stabilizes the moment. These are called one sentence rescue lines. They are short on purpose, they sound calm on purpose, and they work because they interrupt escalation, not because they explain anything. And I want you to keep this in your head as we go. You are not fixing the problem yet. You are stabilizing the situation. Keep it in your head. Now, the right sentence depends on the size of the mistake. So, we will break it into three levels: mild mistake, moderate mistake, and serious mistake. Let's start with mild mistake. A mild mistake is small in scope. It's inconvenient, not harmful. It might annoy someone for a moment, but it doesn't threaten outcomes or trust. In these moments, people often overreact, not because the mistake matters, but because they feel embarrassed. So they start explaining and apologizing and narrating the story. Don't do that. Here's the sentence: "That's on me. I will correct it and update you shortly." This works because it does three things instantly: it takes ownership, it signals competence, and it closes the door on unnecessary discussion. When you make a moderate mistake has a visible impact. Other people may be affected. It may need coordination, follow up, or a real fix. The risk here isn't the mistake itself, the risk is sounding evasive or defensive while trying to explain too quickly. So you use clarity, not speed. Here's the sentence: "I see the issue, I'm taking responsibility, and I will come back with a clear fix." Notice the balance: awareness without panic, responsibility without drama, action without improvisation. And that last part matters because rushed fixes create second mistakes. And what about serious mistakes? A serious mistake changes the emotional temperature of the room. The stakes are high, consequences are real, people may be angry or anxious. In these moments, trying to sound casual backfires, and over apologizing also backfires. What people want is gravity without chaos. Here's the sentence: "This is serious. I take responsibility, and I need a short window to assess and respond properly." This line respects the moment. It doesn't minimize the issue, it doesn't collapse under it either. You are not begging for forgiveness. You are not offering explanations you can't defend yet. You are signaling judgment. Now, here's one rule that makes this line work. And this is the rule that most people violate immediately. Say it once, then stop. Don't repeat, don't stack extra explanation on top of it. Don't apologize again and again. Clarity followed by silence will feel uncomfortable to you for a few seconds. To the other person, it feels controlled, confident, and trustworthy. In the next lesson, we will do two things. First, you will learn how to buy time without looking guilty. So you can check facts and calm down without creating suspicion. And second, you will learn the one sentence that stops the most common failure after a mistake, and that is over explaining. In the last lesson, you learned one sentence rescue lines that stabilize a situation in the first few seconds after a mistake. Those lines do one crucial thing: they stop panic from speaking for you. But once the moment is stabilized, new pressure shows up, and that is time. After a mistake, time suddenly feels emotional. Every second of silence feels louder than it actually is. Your instinct tells you to respond now, to say something, anything, before the silence turns into suspicion. At the same time, you know something else is true. You don't yet have the full picture. You haven't checked the facts. You haven't thought clearly. This is where many people get trapped. They know they need time, but they don't know how to ask for it without sounding evasive, careless, or unprepared. So they do the worst possible thing. They talk while buying time. They fill the space with half answers, speculation, and unnecessary detail. And by the time they actually respond, the damage has already spread. When you ask for time without structure, the other person doesn't hear patience, they hear uncertainty. And uncertainty triggers distrust far faster than silence ever could. Think about how vague phrases land in real conversation. Let me look into it. I will get back to you. I need to check a few things. On their own, these statements feel incomplete. They raise questions instead of calming them. What the other person is really listening for isn't speed, it's control. They want to know whether you understand what's at stake and whether you are capable of handling it without making things worse. That's why buying time isn't about delaying a response, it's about framing the delay as responsibility. Here is this sentence that does exactly that. I understand the concern. I'm responsible for this. I need a short window to review and respond properly. There's nothing dramatic in it, nothing defensive, and that's precisely why it works. It shows awareness without panic, ownership without self punishment, and intention without overcommitment. Most importantly, it tells the listener that time is being used as a tool, not as an escape. Now, there is one more failure that often follows immediately after a mistake, especially once people feel the silence. Then that is over explaining. Over explaining doesn't happen because people are dishonest, it happens because they're uncomfortable. Silence feels dangerous. Every pause feels like judgment. So people rush to fill the space with background, intent, reasoning, and context, hoping that if they explain enough, the other person will relax. Actually, the opposite usually happens. The more you explain in the first minute, the more it sounds like you are managing perception instead of taking responsibility. Even accurate details can feel defensive when they arrive too early. What's needed in that moment is not more information, it's a boundary. A single silence can stop the spiral before it begins by turning accidental silence into deliberate restraints. Here is that particular sentence. I'm not going to explain this yet. I want to respond clearly and responsibly. This line does something most people never think to do. It names the pause. Instead of letting silence feel awkward, it makes it intentional. Instead of sounding unsure, it sounds careful. Notice what it avoids. It doesn't deny responsibility. It doesn't minimize the mistake. It doesn't invite debate. It simply draws a clean line between acknowledgement and explanation. That distinction matters. In the first minute, explanations are rarely heard the way you intend. The other person is still reacting emotionally. Their brain is scanning for honesty, respect, and control, not details. By setting a boundary, you protect yourself from saying something you will regret later. You also protect the conversation from expanding into the wrong direction. Once the boundary is set, stop talking. Let the silence exist. It may feel uncomfortable for a few seconds, but discomfort is far less damaging than overexposure. In the next lesson, we will look at what not to say in the first minute. The phrases that sound polite and responsible but quietly escalate blame, suspicion, and conflict without people realizing it. That's where many well intentioned professionals accidentally undo their own credibility. And after learning that, you won't be one of them. Up to this point, you have learned how to stabilize a mistake. You know why the first minute matters and the rescue sentences that stop panic from speaking. And you know how to buy time and use silence without looking guilty. Now, we need to talk about the other side of the equation because even when people intend to do the right thing, they often say phrases that quietly make the situation worse. Not because they're careless, but because the words feel comforting in that moment. They sound polite, they sound responsible, they sound like something responsible people say. And that's exactly why they're dangerous. Certain sentences, when spoken in the first minute after a mistake, don't escalate through anger or arrogance. They escalate by shifting attention away from the impact and toward your intent. That shift is subtle, but it's what triggers resistance. Let's start with one of the most common phrases people rely on, and that is, I didn't mean to. People say this instinctively. They are trying to signal good intentions, but in the first minute, intention is irrelevant. The mistake has already happened. The impact is already felt. When you lead with intent, it sounds like you are asking for understanding before you have shown responsibility. To the listener, it often sounds as I care more about being seen as innocent than what went wrong. That's the problem. Another phrase that backfires is any version of this. It wasn't really my fault. Even if it's true, even if others were involved, even if circumstances were messy, the moment you say this, you are already negotiating blame. And once blame enters the conversation, the emotional direction changes. What could have stayed contained now starts to feel like a debate. The first minute is not the time to assign causes, it's the time to establish trust. Another surprisingly risky move is rushing toward reassurance. Don't worry, it's not a big deal. When you decide how serious the mistake is, you take that judgment away from the person affected. Even when you are trying to calm things down, minimizing the issue can feel dismissive. People don't want their concerns managed, they want them acknowledged. Then there are these soft sounding qualifiers that quietly erode credibility. For example, I think, maybe, it should be fine. In the first minute, uncertainty doesn't sound thoughtful, it sounds unprepared. These words weaken whatever comes after them and make the listener question whether you understand the situation at all. And finally, there's the most tempting mistake of all, explaining why before acknowledging what. Background stories, technical details, and context aren't inherently bad, but in the first minute, they feel like smoke. Even accurate explanations can sound like excuses when they arrive before ownership. So, remember this rule: never let your first sentence defend your character. Your character will be judged by how you handle the moment, not by how carefully you explain yourself. When you avoid these phrases, something interesting happens. The conversation stays smaller, emotions settle faster, and you retain the ability to address real issue clearly, calmly, and at the right time. This is the quiet power of the first minute. In the next lesson, we will put all of this into motion. You will walk through common mistake scenarios, missed deadlines, wrong files, incorrect information, and you will see exactly how the rescue lines work in real moment. That's where this skill stops being theory and starts becoming instinct. Let's start. So far, you have learned how to stabilize a mistake before it spreads. You understand why the first minute matters, and you know the rescue sentences. You know how to buy time without looking guilty. You know what phrases quietly make things worse. Now it's time to see all of that plays out in real situation, because skills like this don't become useful through theory alone. They become useful when you can recognize the moment and respond without hesitation. Let's walk through some of the most common mistake scenarios people face at work and apply 60-second rescue exactly as it's meant to be used. Scenario 1: you missed a deadline. A deadline is missed and it's noticed. Your instinct is to explain, to protect your credibility by describing everything that got in your way. That instinct fails because it sounds defensive and expand the issue. So don't say, "I'm really sorry, I had a lot going on and I thought I could still." Don't say something like this. Say this instead: "That's on me. I see the impact. I will come back with a clear recovery plan shortly. This does three things at once. Ownership is clear, the tension drops, time is gained. In the first minute, contain the mistake. Don't explain yet. Scenario 2. You forgot a task entirely. You agreed to do something and it simply didn't get done. The instinct here is to apologize excessively and narrate how it slipped. That sounds unreliable. So don't say, I completely forgot. I have been overwhelmed lately. Say this, I missed this. I'm addressing it now and will update you shortly. Responsibility is clear, competence is implied, and the moment closes quickly. Own the miss once. Don't narrate how it happened. Scenario 3. You send the wrong file or the wrong version. An incorrect document or version was shared. The instinct is to justify the confusion. That signals carelessness. So don't say, I thought that was the final version. Say this, that was the wrong version. I'm sending the correct one now. The correction is clear. Confusion stops spreading. Correct first, explain later if necessary. Scenario 4. You gave incorrect information. Something you said earlier turns out to be wrong. The instinct is to deflect responsibility. That weakens your credibility. So don't say, that's what I was told at that time. Say this, I need to correct that. Here's the accurate information. Accuracy is prioritized over ego. Being right later matters more than being right before. So remember this. Scenario 5. You are late to a meeting. You arrive after the meeting is started. The instinct is to explain the delay. That sounds like excuse making. So don't say, sorry, traffic was terrible. Say this, thanks for waiting, I'm here now. The meeting resumes without distraction. Acknowledge presence, not reasons. Scenario 6. Your work doesn't meet expectations. A deliverable is flagged as lower quality than expected. The instinct is to defend effort that lowers the standards. So don't say, I did my best with the time I had. Say this doesn't meet the standard. I'm revising it. Standards are reinforced. Trust remains intact. Align with the standard, not your effort. Scenario 7. Someone catches a mistake before you do. Another person points out an error you missed. The instinct is to claim you noticed it too. That sounds defensive. So don't say, I was just about to fix that. Say this, good catch. I will take care of it. The issue stays small and collaborative. Acknowledgement builds more trust than pretense. Scenario 8. You need time but don't have answers yet. You are asked for a response before facts are clear. The instinct is to speculate. That creates doubt. So don't say, I think it should be fine. Say this, I need a short window to confirm and respond accurately. Time feels intentional, not evasive. Accuracy builds more trust than speed. Scenario 9. A client or a manager is clearly frustrated. The other person is unhappy but still controlled. The instinct is to match emotion or over apologize. That escalates tension. So don't say, I completely understand how you feel. Say this: I see the impact. I'm addressing it. Focus returns to resolution. Acknowledgement impact, not emotion. Scenario 10. You overpromised and can't deliver as planned. A commitment can't be met as originally stated. The instinct is to explain constraints. That sounds like retreating. So don't say, I didn't realize it would take this long. Say this: I overestimated capacity. Here's the revised plan. Reality replaces excuses. Credibility survives honesty better than optimism. If you notice a pattern across all these scenarios, that's intentional. The structure stays the same, only the facts change. You are not composing a response, you are completing a pattern. Next, we will talk about how to train this skill until it becomes automatic, so that when pressure hits, calm control is what comes out. You don't need to think, you don't need to analyze, it will become your nature. That's what we're going to build next. So stay with me. Before we move on, I want to be very clear with you about something. Knowing what to say is not the same as being able to say it when your heart is racing and your reputation feels exposed. In those moments, you will not rise to your best intentions. You will fall back on what you have practiced. That's why this chapter is not advice, it's training. When I work with people on this skill, I don't start by putting them under pressure. I start by teaching their nervous system what calm control feels like. Once that becomes familiar, the words follow. Your training happens in 3 stages. Stage 1: familiarity before performance. Day 1 to 3. For the first few days, do not try to use this skill when something goes wrong. That comes later. Instead, once or twice a day, read rescue sentences. Read it out loud, not quickly, not emotionally, just clearly. As you do this, pay attention to something subtle. Notice how your body reacts to short and firm sentences. Notice how calm they feel compared to explanations. You are teaching your mind that less can be enough. At this stage, success is simple. When a mistake happens, even if you don't say the sentence yet, your mind should recognize the structure and think, there is a structure here. That moment of recognition is the beginning of mastery. Then we move to stage 2. Practice where it feels safe. Day 4 to 10. Now you begin using the skill, but only where the cost is low. Use it when you need more time to respond. You make a small mistake or something minor slips. Say the sentence, then stop. It will feel uncomfortable. Silence always does at first. Let that discomfort pass without touching it. Afterward, ask yourself only one question. Did the situation calm down or did it grow? Do not judge yourself. Do not replay the moment. A disciplined professional watches outcome, not ego. If the moment stayed contained, the training worked. And if it didn't, keep practicing. Now let's talk about stage 3. Steady use under pressure. Week 2 to 4. By now, the structure should feel familiar, even if it still feels unnatural. Before meetings, deadlines, or difficult conversations, quietly remind yourself, if something goes wrong, I will say one clear sentence and stop. And when the moment arrives, you may still feel adrenaline. That does not mean you failed. Calm does not mean the absence of feelings. It means the presence of restraint. Even if your voice shakes slightly, even if you wish you had said it better, one controlled sentence is enough. You are no longer reacting, you are choosing. That choice is the skill. Now, the question is, how long does it take to master this skill? Most people notice a change in themselves within 2 weeks. Others notice a change in how people respond to them within a month. True ease, the point where you no longer need to think about what to say. It usually comes after 6 or 8 weeks of consistent use. Not because the skill is difficult, it's not difficult at all, but because untrained habits are actually quite stubborn. So, how will you know you're improving? You will know you are advancing when conversations after mistakes become shorter. People stop pressing you for explanations, and you feel less urge to justify yourself. And the deepest sign of mastery is this: you leave the moment without replaying it in your head. That's when the mistake has fully stopped spreading. You have learned how to hold the first minute steady. Now we will move beyond the first minute into what to say once people are calm enough to listen, and when your words begin shaping how you are remembered. That's where the repair begins. Think about where you were an hour ago. You didn't have the words, you didn't have the structure. A mistake at work was something that scared you. Right now, it's something you are prepared for. But what you learned today is only the beginning. This was the first hour of my full course, Communication Skills: What to Say After a Mistake at Work. The full course has 7 sections and it is free. It covers everything from the first minute after a mistake to trust restoring responses, to writing emails after a mistake, to talking to your boss, handling mistake in the meetings and team settings, navigating high-stake mistakes involving clients, money, and reputation, and finally, rebuilding trust after a mistake. 7 sections, 54 lectures, over 5 hours of training. And I'm not trying to sell anything. I mean that. I've been where you are. I have sat in that chair after a mistake, heart racing, saying all the wrong things, watching it get worse. Nobody taught me how to handle that moment. And when I finally figured it out, I made a decision. If I ever have the ability to teach this to others, I will make it accessible to everyone I possibly can. So type communication skills in the comments and I will share free access to the full course with you. Not a trial, the full course. I can offer 100 free access every month. If we cross that limit, you will get access the following month. Nobody gets behind. After you master this, start applying it at your workplace, come back and tell me how it changed things for you, and then share it with someone who needs it. That colleague who panics when something goes wrong, that friend who keeps getting passed over and doesn't know why, that younger person who just started their first job give them the skill that nobody gave them. Because we don't grow alone, we help each other and thrive together. Thank you for watching.